Hi, it's Kirby Sommers, and I welcome you to my true crime podcast. Today is August 6th, and the topic is going to be bloodlines. Before I get started, I want to thank all of my new followers, all of my new patrons on Patreon. Patreon. It's one of those. I think it's Patreon, all of the people who joined my newsletter, which is really where I put my deep dives. I can't put sensitive information, let's say, on either my Twitter, my Patreon, or uh, even on my podcast, because as it'll be removed. And so what I've been doing for the now it's into my fourth year is I've been doing it through my newsletter where I can say whatever I want to say. It goes directly into your inbox. And I don't have to be discreet. I can pretty much round out my thoughts. So as you know, the last couple of podcasts that I did were on Meghan Markle, her connections to Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Prince Andrew, long before she ever met Prince Harry. One of the recurring comments that I have seen from some of you, both on my YouTube channel and on Twitter, is your reluctance to believe that she gave birth to Prince Harry's children. That may be true. However, bloodlines are very important. And as an example, and so that they're definitely Prince Harry's. So I'm just backtracking for a second. So that they're definitely Prince Harry's children. We know that the royals in particular are very, um, uh, they're very tuned into who they're sort of, where they come from. The bloodline has to remain intact. I mean, we've seen how they have intermarried. However, the bloodline is a very important thing for not just the royals, but for the elite. The elite, let's say, that were portrayed in Eyes Wide Shut, a very well-known film by Stanley Kubrick. This is actually something I'm working on for the next Epstein project newsletter, which drops on Tuesday. It's sort of like a special report because as I was looking into the Meghan Markle story and pulling at some threads and discovering things that I don't know why someone else didn't discover a long time ago, I came across other interesting characters that were in Jeffrey Epstein's life connected to royals long before he ever met Prince Andrew. And so that's dropping, as well as some information on Stanley Kubrick. But to get back to bloodlines, so for example, if for those of you who have read my memoir, The Billionaire's Woman, you have been following me for a long time, you know that I am the former forced, I'm not going to use the word slave of a person connected to this milieu. I'm not going to necessarily even mention his name because I don't want alarm bells to ring or anything like that. However, he too is a descendant of a very well-known family. And I'm going to get a little bit into that. And so I remember one day in particular when he showed up at my place, and he was very distraught. And, you know, it's really interesting because he always looked tired to me. He has these dark circles under his eyes. He doesn't sleep more than 3 hours a night. And he's involved in all of this stuff that where he would be above, let's say, somebody like Epstein. Somebody like Epstein would have worked for him. in fact, I spotted a photo of him at one of the events that Leslie Wexner had for Victoria's Secret. So anyway, he shows up and he's very distraught. And I just what's going on? And he says, my father's wife and his father's wife at the time was Pia Zadora, wants another baby. And his father was already probably 60 or so, and apparently had some issues with being able to produce another child. And he wanted to use his son's S word. I don't even know if I can say it on YouTube, but so he wanted to use that in order for her to have the family's child so that the bloodline would not be mixed up. So I'm just gonna I am going to it says I can't minimize this, but I need to read this. So hopefully I'm still recording. So I'm going to read something that I found a long time ago. One of Sharon's chief bankrollers over the past years has been the American dirty money and pornography kingpin, Meshulam Riklis. Some months back, Riklis's father, Pincus, died in Israel, and Israeli newspapers carried obituary notices which identified Pincus as a descendant of the Baal Shem Tov. And so a bloodline aspect is added to the political religious drama. So let me see if it says, so I'm going to skip over some stuff. These circles popularized mysticism, alchemy, Kabbalism as aspects of witchcraft and devil or Lucifer worship. Okay, so what we have sort of bumped into here with the bloodline thing is that they all, and you guys are familiar with what happens, let's say, at the Bohemian Grove, what happens at the Stanford Hotel in that infamous room 322, what has been alleged to happen on Leslie Wexner's property, so that there has always been allegations, rumors of the occult, of sacrifice, so on and so forth within the elite. And so to get back to whether or not Meghan Markle is the natural mother of the two children, a lot of you make valid points. And she was wearing high heels. She looked different. She was able to bend down while she was, I believe, 8 months pregnant. That's a difficult thing to do, to be able to squat down on high heels or to fly during the very late stages of pregnancy. I don't know the answer as to whether or not she is the biological mother. Indications would suggest that she's not. However, if we remember also in the case of Michael Jackson, when he wanted to have children, he went and hired someone to have children for him. And that woman went ahead and had the two children that she had, who became, his kids. They were given to Jackson by, I don't remember her name offhand. And if we then go into the Jeffrey Epstein case, we know, even from mainstream media reports, that Jeffrey Epstein wanted to have a child with Virginia Giuffre, who at the time was known as Virginia Roberts, when she was in the grasp of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And they basically said to her, and this is in court documents, if you want to find it, you'll have to dig, because there's a lot of court documents. But basically, here's what they promised her. they said to her, we'll give you $200,000 a month. You have this baby for us. So they were really pretending in many cases to be husband and wife. That is how they presented themselves to some of the parents. And a lot of these kids were too young to know what their status was. So in a way, it really didn't matter. And however, the child will be ours. You will accompany us, so on and so forth, so that the bloodline would have been Epstein's child. That indicates stuff that a lot of people have not looked into. Jeffrey Epstein's own bloodline. And that's something that I sort of poke into in my book, Creating Epstein, which is only on my website. You know, there's some books that I'm okay putting on let's say the Amazon thing. I know that I have a lot of pushback because I was part of that world for 8 years. And so I was able to see, hear, observe, you know, like be stunned. I was able to see how that world works, you know, how the parties work, how the politics work, who gets chosen, who gets left behind, what happens to you when they no longer need you. And what happens is they, you know, you are eliminated. It's made to look like an accident or a suicide, or, you know, a third party is brought into it, and all kinds of really weird things happen. And a lot of you are so familiar with that because you have read a lot of my work. But in Creating Epstein, I don't want to put it on. I thought about doing it, but I don't want to put it on. I just don't want to put it there on Amazon because I also share information that I obtained from whistleblowers that did work for the CIA, and how and information that connects into MK Ultra, information that connects to the Promise software, information that connects into Danny Casolaro, and how all and information on the attorneys, by the way, that are have been handling the case for many of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, namely David Boies, Stanley Pottinger, and Bradley Edwards. And I also go into their connection to the dirty trickster, Roger Stone, Lee Atwater, a lot of things that once you read and you understand, and which is why I became interested in Meghan Markle to begin with, because when I saw the photograph of her with CIA asset Gloria Steinem, who was Stanley Pottinger's girlfriend for approximately 10 years. And so that these people are the same people, it's the same group. So, all right, getting back to Bloodline, the children are definitely Harry's. They may not be hers, but she is selected to play this role. The other thing I want to bring to your attention before I sign off is that there's a lot of drama that is created for the general public, meaning you and me, in order to distract, so that let's say in the United States, between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, there will be it'll seem like they're two different parties, but frankly, they're two sides of the same coin. They still work for the same people who get them elected. So in Ira's situation, I saw how when it was convenient to back a Republican, that's what they did. When it was convenient for them to back a Democrat, it didn't really matter as long as they got someone who was compromised enough to just follow the script. And a lot of people hate to give up the fantasy, the illusion. It's an illusion. A lot of the things that we see are just illusions. But so that they create friction to keep you occupied. Better to keep you occupied looking at something that's fake a fake argument, fake differences, fake anything. Keep you occupied with a bunch of things that have nothing to do with what's really going on in the world, which they're in charge of. All right. And by they, I mean the elite. Then for you, so that I sincerely have my own misgivings and my own doubts as to whether or not there is real friction within the royal family, meaning within Queen Elizabeth II, uh, her grandchildren and her family. Sometimes that is a staged thing. It wasn't staged, let's say, with Princess Diana. Obviously, there was a big divide there. He should never have married Prince Charles, should never have married her. But again, it was an illusion. He wasn't really in love with her. She was a young girl, naive. She fell for it. In Markle's case, she was not a young girl. She was not naive. Uh, there is a certain bloodline that's connected to the royal family. I won't get into it in this podcast. However, the point is the children definitely belong to Harry. Whether or not they belong to Meghan is a different story, but the bloodline thing continues. All right, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this particular talk. I'm trying to keep these short because I'm doing so many of them back to back. Well, it's Saturday. I hope you guys have a really good day, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.